Now, who out there doesn't like a quality hunting food plot that you can go on and you have that, you can sit on that food plot and you can enjoy pass-through deer and get a good hunting sit during the fall. I love hunting on food plots, although I don't hunt on food plots often because you can't spook those deer that are on the food plot. That's a number one rule of planting food plots, using food plots. If you're going to just plant those food plots to spook deer off, you're certainly 100% not better off. You're better off not having that food plot. But at the same time, there are small food plots and hunting plots that set up that perfect circumstance. And I'll give you this food plot for example. We can hunt this food plot with a box elder tree over here in a stand location that we set up a couple years ago. And we're just hunting pass-through deer on this plot. This plot is lengthy. It points down to the big plots down below, and it's just simply a pass-through. The deer have an end goal of getting down there before dark. They're there until dark, and then they leave to the ag fields after dark. So this is just a complete pass-through. So that's a perfect setup for a hunting plot. And I have hunting plot videos out there and talk about, you know, you don't want your food plot to be an end game. You don't want that hunting plot that you're on to where deer just sit there for a half hour, 45 minutes until dark, and you have to spook them getting in or out of the tree stand. If your food plot's an end game movement and they're just going to sit there till dark, then it's not a hunting plot. A hunting plot is a true pass-through. Your wind can be defined. The deer have an end goal, a focus that they're trying to get to, and then you have that perfect hunting plot setup. Now, the bad thing is about hunting plots, a lot of times they're smaller. You're typically not hunting a 5-acre food plot that's on the way to something bigger. We're talking 1/20 of an acre, 1/10 of an acre, 1/4 acre at most, where you're just looking at a window of deer movement, the deer passing by, and you're hunting it. When you have that small plot, then you have to have a forage that's on that plot that's browse resistant. And most food plot seeds, most food plot varieties, seed varieties are not browse tolerant. And I'll give you an example. Sugar beets are one of the worst. It's a sweet foliage, takes several months to grow compared to a basic brassica blend, and the deer eat it down to the dirt and there's nothing left. And so sugar beets are pretty poor. Brassica in a northern setting or a big wood setting, a lot of times a brassica combination of rape, radish, turnip, tillage radish, the deer are going to heavily consume it. I've seen brassica plantings in northern areas or big woods areas down to the south where they just didn't even make it to the hunting season. So not very browse resistant. Now beans are another one. I've seen some terrible client crop failures in areas where they're big woods and they're putting in 2-3 acres of beans or less, and the beans are just down to the ground by October 1st. It's another very intolerant browse pressure food plot variety seed that shouldn't be planted on small food plots. Now, what I found on these pass-through plots, we're talking small plots, even smaller than this one right here, is when you have that 1/10 of an acre, 1/8 of an acre, even up to a 1/4 acre plot, I found two very browse-resistant food plot varieties that you can plant on your land that could work well on a hunting plot, and especially a hunting plot situation where you want green and you want there to be volume, but the deer just passing through. One is if you're located in out east Pennsylvania, into southern Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, Iowa, down in Kentucky, Arkansas. Great positioning for a clover plot. And the reason I like clover in those areas is because it doesn't get frosted and frozen out during October, November typically, so it keeps growing for the entire season. It keeps giving you life. And clover is not, it's an attractive forage, but it's not highly attractive in comparison to soybeans, peas, alfalfa, brassicas, and some of those similar locations. And so when you have that heavy wooded area, when you have timber, and it's down south a little bit more than where I'm at in southwest Wisconsin here, then you can get a lot of life out of that clover throughout the entire season because it keeps growing into November, sometimes even into December. So a lot of life. Now when you get into the northern settings, a practice that I developed a long time ago is layering winter rye. So let's say you even have a crop failure on those food plots. I can go back to, I think it was 2002, I had a great brassica crop growing in the UP of Michigan on a small food plot end where a lot of deer came in and out as an entrance to a bigger food plot. And went away on vacation the end of August, going on a fishing trip with a family, and I get back and all the brassica was eaten down to the root just about. And so in that case, it was the end of August, early September, Added 200 pounds of winter rye to that, not rye grass, but rye grain. So 200 pounds of winter rye right over the top. And over the course of the next month, it was amazing because it actually got a little bit more growth on the brassica because deer love young rye. So they turned their attention to the young rye that was coming in. I just simply hand broadcasted 200 pounds per acre with my red Earthway model. I think it's 2750. The model number is for that red Earthway spreader. Spread it on top, and the rye grew, took the attention away from the brassica, got a little bit more growth from the brassica. And what I found is whether you're layering on top of food plot failures, whether the deer consume it or it doesn't grow, you get drought, or you're specifically planning for layered rye is a great option for poor soil, northern soils, big woods. Might even you still use that in southern Ohio, southern Indiana, Illinois, into Iowa, down in Kentucky, over to Pennsylvania. You might even plan for this. But what I like doing is if your first frost date is October 15th, then approximately 6 weeks before that frost date in your area, I would target around Labor Day. I'm adding 100 pounds of rye. 3 to 4 weeks later, I'm adding another 100 pounds of rye. And then around that first frost date, I'm adding another 100 pounds of rye. So you can add up to 300 pounds of rye layered in that area. And what you're doing is that first layer of rye gets to 7-8 inches tall. And then you're adding that second layer of rye and you'll still have some open soil showing. And then if the deer are consuming it heavily and you still have 40 to 50% soil exposure, even 30%, meaning you can see about 30% of the ground, then you're adding another layer of rye. Now, if you're in a northern setting, usually you've pushed that date up a little bit to where the first frost date might be mid-September. Then I'm pushing that date to about August, mid-August, and I'm planting 100 pounds mid-August, maybe another 100 pounds the 1st, the 10th of, through the 10th of September. And then I'm adding another 100 pounds right around October 1st. And so you're moving that date up a little bit in northern areas. But bottom line is you're layering that rye. You're looking to fill space this way, create a sod base that you can't see the ground through. And whether you're planting layered rye on small hunting plots in the north or big wood settings, or clover, which will continue to grow and offer an appreciable amount of adequate food during the hunting season, those are two great forages that I would look at for facilitating the movement of small hunting plots, deer that are moving to a bigger food source. You plan for that movement, and it's a great way to introduce a browse-resistant forage to the local deer herd on small hunting plots. And again, if your food plot has failed because of overconsumption, deer browsed it, hit it, it droughted out, didn't grow for whatever reason, you can still add that layered rye approach right over your food plots. You can even plan for that happening. And let's face it, if you're looking at small food plots and hunting plots and you're trying to plant soybeans, brassica, winter peas, some of those glamour crops, even corn, you might as well plan for layering rye over it because it's going to be gone by the time it gets to October, especially if you're in those northern to big wood settings. Try some of those browse-resistant varieties. Again, winter rye, clover, depending on where it's at. And I think you have the best chance then of creating a nice pass-through plot while deer are going to a better food plot, bigger food plot somewhere else, and you have their focus and attention. You're getting that small window of movement where you can take a shot at them, and that's what creates a great hunting plot. Not necessarily the perfect forage on that plot, but an adequate high volume forage that gets them to the next stage of their movement in the afternoon hours.